Hey everybody, it's Emily at ARG Schooling, and today I'm going to be doing part 1 of our Watership Down read-along discussion. So today we're going to be discussing parts 1 and 2 of the novel. So if you haven't read up to the end of part 2, you might want to wait until you've gotten there before watching this video so you don't get spoiled, because we are going to be discussing a lot about the plot and other elements that you might not want to get too far ahead. So before I get started about that, I'm going to show you guys this awesome copy of Watership Down I have. It's beautiful. My husband found this for me. It's a gorgeous illustrated hardcover, and it's so cute. The naked book has rabbits on it. It's adorable, and it's illustrated, and I'm just gonna find a picture for you guys because it's so pretty. The illustrations are gorgeous. Here's an example of one of the illustrations, and they're beautiful, and there's at least a dozen, I think, illustrations throughout the book, but they're super pretty, and I can't find another one. Oh, here we go. So it's gorgeous. I'm in love with this book, but I'm excited because I have a second copy. So we're going to do a giveaway. If you want to be entered, all you have to do is comment in this video. If you leave a comment, just, hey, I want a copy of the book, or you add to the discussion or whatever, you're entered. So this is open internationally, so if you live in Canada or England or wherever, you can still get a copy. So I'm going to do the giveaway at our live show. So when we do the live show in December, we will be announcing the winner. The contest will be open until then, so if you add to the discussion between now and December, what did I say it was going to be, December like 22nd maybe? 23rd, somewhere in there. I'll make a note somewhere. So when we do the live show, I will be announcing the winner. So that's exciting. You can own a copy of this gorgeous, gorgeous hardcover edition. Okay, so now let's get into the discussion. So I thought I'd start by giving a little bit of a synopsis of the plot. So we begin the story with Hazel and Fiver, who are two of the younger rabbits in this bigger warren, the Sandalford Warren. And we know from the beginning that Fiver has these visions, and that Hazel takes them seriously because he's known all along that Fiver's always right when Fiver has a vision. So he has this vision about the warren, that something bad is going to happen. He sees them place a sign outside of their warren. These men come and they put a sign there, and he starts to freak out. And he tells Hazel, we need to leave now. We can't stay here. And so Hazel, believing his brother, goes to see their chief rabbit, the Threra, and he tells them what's happening. But the Threra, not surprisingly, does not want to take his whole warren up and leave because there's a lot of rabbits there. It's also, they mentioned that there's some overcrowding happening, and some of the younger rabbits, or the smaller rabbits, are having a harder time getting enough food or finding a doe. So the Threra just sort of dismisses them. But they are able to get a group together of other smaller rabbits that are willing to leave, as well as Bigwig, who is one of the Owsla, which is like the police, or the, I think of them more as like bodyguards almost, sort of a cross between a bodyguard to the chief, but also like the police. And so Bigwig sees Fiver and knows Hazel, and he believes him and thinks that something bad might really happen, and decides that it'd be worth his while to not be there when it does. So they leave. They get a little ways away. They come across another warren, which seems like the greatest of places because it's large. It's a very big warren. They've got extra burrows. They've got all this space. The rabbits there are all really big and strong, and they want to be a part of that. They notice some strange things about this warren. One being Fiver wants nothing to do with it. Fiver sees what's happening immediately and he goes and stays outside under a tree, even in the rain. But the other rabbits are willing to overlook the oddness because they think they found a good thing and they want to have that good thing. And one of the odd things they notice right off is that whenever they try to ask where something is, the other rabbits ignore it completely and change the subject. The two main rabbits we meet there are Strawberry and Cowslip. Cowslip is the one that invites them to come stay there, and Strawberry is the one that sort of acts as their tour guide. And some of the things they show them are a little bit weird, like they make art at this warren, which rabbits don't do art. They don't understand what they're looking at when they see it. They just see rocks stuck into the wall and they don't get what that is. And they sing, which is a thing that rabbits also don't do. And so they find it weird, but they're willing to overlook the weirdness until they can't. This warren is right next to a farm, and they always have plenty to eat there because the men that live at the farm bring them food. And it doesn't concern them at first because it's really good food. Rabbits typically eat nothing but grass, but these rabbits live on carrots and parsnips and cabbage and all that good stuff that typically rabbits don't have very much of. So it seems wonderful. But when in reality, it's really the men living on this farm are leaving snares, and they're willing to just overlook the fact that every now and then some of the rabbits disappear because they've been caught in the snares and taken by the men. Any one of them could just suddenly be gone. So it's a warren of death, and they decide that they don't want to stay there after Bigwig gets caught in a snare and almost dies. And the other rabbits are just like, yeah, we don't want to talk about it. We're just going to pretend it didn't happen. Nobody wants to go and help. So they obviously Hazel's group goes and helps Bigwig and gets him out of the snare, and then they decide to go. All this time Fiver's been saying they need to leave and go over the hills because he sees that that is where they need to be. And the other rabbits think that's awfully far to travel. And all along they're just like, we just want to stop. We just want to stay where we are. But Fiver is determined that they need to go a little further and get over to the hills because that's the best place for them. He's seen it. And so he convinces Hazel that they need to check that out. And they go up on the top of a hill, and it's the perfect place. So that is where they end up. By the end of part 2, they have settled into their new warren on the down. Once they've gotten there, they realize right away they have a problem. There are not any does in their warren. They don't have any females, and they need them if they want to have an actual warren that is going to stay beyond their lifetime. So they have to figure out what to do next. Hazel has this idea one day to help a mouse. He sees a mouse about to get eaten by a bird, and he interferes and saves the mouse. The other rabbits think this is the most bizarre thing he could have ever done, but they don't understand. But he says that he thinks it's important to foster relationships with other animals that aren't Elil. He says that they need to go ahead and look for any opportunity to help an animal that isn't going to be dangerous to them. And so one day they see that there's a bird. It's a large bird, and they're not familiar with it. It's not the kind of bird that would typically be on a down at that time of year, and it's injured in some way, and so they go to help it, and it's a bit fierce. Kihar is the bird, and Kihar isn't really too sure about rabbits at first, but once he realizes they're trying to help him, they bring him bugs and worms, and they make a burrow for him in their warren, and they bring him in and let him rest until he gets better. He has a broken wing. And so they help him, and when they're like, but why, Hazel? He says that it's important because they need does, and they need someone who knows this area and who can help them find does. And so he hopes that once Kihar has healed up, that he'd be willing to fly overhead and scout around for them and see if he can see anything that might be of use to them. So once Kihar has healed, he and Bigwig too are like my favorite thing ever. I love Bigwig and Kihar's relationship. So he decides to help them because they've been so good to him. And so he spots two places they need to check out. There's a farm not too far that has a hutch, and there's another warren not too far away that they need to check out. So Hazel decides that he's going to send a faction off to check out this warren, and he is going to bring a couple of rabbits with him to go check out the hutch at the farm and see what they can do. So they find that there's a few rabbits in a hutch, and there are does there, but they are domesticated rabbits. So Hazel and his group go down to the hutch and try to convince those rabbits that they're going to come back for them, and then they can live in the warren and they can be free and they're a little bit nervous about it because they don't know what that means. They've never been free. They've lived their whole lives in a hutch. So the other group goes to the other warren to see what they can learn about those rabbits and hopefully bring back some does. And then Hazel makes a quick decision that he's going to be the great leader, and when the other group comes back, they're already going to have does because he's going to go in the night and bring back some does from the hutch. And Fiver tells him not to because he thinks it's dangerous and that he's just showing off. But he decides that he's not going to listen to Fiver. He's just going to go and do it because he knows they need the does and that he can do it, and then he'll look even more impressive to the other rabbits if he's managed it. And so he takes Pipkin and Blackberry and they go to the farm at night and they release the rabbits. And some of the rabbits don't make it because they don't know what to do once they've been released. They freak out the minute they're out. And Hazel tries, and the men come in a car, I think, and the lights scare them. And the men grab the two rabbits really easily because they're just sitting there. But Hazel tries to distract them so the rest can get away. And while he's doing that, one of the men pulls out a gun and shoots him. And he goes and runs into a ditch. And then the other rabbits can't find him. He's disappeared, and they assume that he's dead. And they go back to the warren without him. And Fiver has a dream that Hazel is hurt and he needs their help. And he tells Blackberry that they need to go back. And Blackberry's like, no, he's dead, he's gone, we need to just move on. And Hazel's convinced that he's not. And he convinces Blackberry to take him to the ditch. And they find Hazel alive, but very wounded, and they bring him back. So he's back at the warren, and just when they've returned, the other rabbits who went to scout out the other warren are also returning, and they have news as well, but it's not good news. They had been taken prisoner at the other warren, which is Ephrafa, and at Ephrafa things are run very differently from their home warren, where they have a lot of rabbits, and they each have a different mark. So each mark is able to go out and feed at certain times of the day, and they all go out in groups. And the Owsla there is much bigger, and they scout out further, and they're run like almost a totalitarian government. It's very dangerous to have gone there, and they were only able to get away because they escaped, and they crossed the train tracks just as the train was coming over, and they don't understand what they're seeing. They think that Frith has sent a Rududu to protect them, and they run away back to the warren, and Hazel says they need to go back. They need to go back because there are does there. It's overcrowded. They know they can get some does out if they can just escape, just like they did the first time. So Hazel's determined to go back. He wants to go with them, and Fiver agrees to come as well, as does Bigwig. And so they're going on a journey to Ephrafa at the end of part 2. So I'm going to set this down now because this book is very heavy. So some things I thought we could discuss. I wrote some notes down, and I thought it would be fun to talk about in the discussion in the comments. So specifically, I want to talk about mythology, because I find it fascinating. The language and the mythology, I think, is what sort of makes the story, because on its own, the tale of Hazel and Fiver and the other rabbits leaving a warren and going on an adventure to find a new warren is exciting, and it's a really well done story. But when you add in the mythology and the language, I just think it's that much more. It's so much deeper. I love the world building aspect, and that the religion is almost like made for them. Like, he comes up with these stories and this mythology that is so just complex, but also so simple, and just like what a real rabbit would think. I just think that's really interesting. And I was talking to Sarah, who was going to be in this video but isn't feeling well, so she's taking a nap. But when I was talking to her about this, she said that she thought that El Herrera was more of a trickster god than like a Jesus figure, and I thought that was interesting because she knows a lot more about mythology than I do. And I thought that was fascinating. So what do you think about the mythology aspect of the story and their sort of religious beliefs about Lord Frith and the Black Rabbit of Inlay and El Herrera and all of that? What do you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts about that. The other thing that really stood out to me on this reread is all the environmentalism. I think maybe because it's at the forefront of my mind right now with climate change and all of that, that it just jumps out more to me now. But I find it really interesting what the author is saying about man's relationship to the earth, and specifically when it comes to the rabbits and how they view men. Holly was talking about what happened at the other warren, which I also forgot, I didn't mention that in my synopsis. When Holly comes back and finds them and tells them what actually went down at the Sandalford Warren, he makes a comment that they said that wasn't why they destroyed the warren. It was just because we were in their way. They killed us to suit themselves. And that's one of the things that really jumps out at me, is that they view men as just these beings that just come in and stomp all over the place and destroy everything and then go on about their way. They don't think about the fact that there are animals that live there. They just think, oh, those rabbits are in the way, we need to get rid of them, and then destroy the entire warren and kill all the rabbits there. And that sort of thing, it really jumped out at me this time in the reread, that this book has a lot to say about our relationship to the environment. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about that, because I think that is actually a relatively large aspect of the story, is man's relationship to the environment. And you see it with what happened at the Sandalford Warren. You see it again at Cowslip's Warren, where they're snaring the rabbits there, but like giving them food and fattening them up and giving them this good life so that they can then capture them and eat them or take their pelts or whatever. And you see it again at the hutch as well, with the domesticated rabbits that live in the hutch, and that they don't know how to be rabbits because they've never had to do that. Another thing I wanted to talk about was Cowslip's Warren specifically, is how strange the rabbits were there. And that's one of the things we discussed quite a bit too when we were reading it, was why they behaved the way they did. The rabbits there had changed and adapted to this environment because they didn't have to be rabbits anymore. Hazel and his group say, when they're looking at these strange rabbits, like, they don't understand it. When they want to tell the stories that they've always told about El Herrera and all of that, and the other rabbits are like, oh, but we have a poet and he makes up songs and his song is all about death, and it's really just sort of disturbing and weird. And they're like, why don't they act like rabbits? But they don't need to. They don't need to have those trickster ways, because they don't have to trick anybody. They're not trying to escape from Elil or any of those things. They're just living in this place where they're well fed until they're killed, basically. And so I thought that was really strange and interesting to think about, like how we change and adapt to our environment, and how we're willing to overlook bad things happening around us specifically. Like, you know that bad things are happening. You've seen bad things happening, but you don't really want to do anything about it because you are comfortable. And the fact that those rabbits were so willing to just be comfortable and ignore the bad things, even though they know that they're next, they're probably going to be one of the ones that get snared. But for whatever reason, it's easier to not worry about it. And so I found that aspect of it to be really striking this time as I read it. What do you think makes Hazel such a good leader? He is an unlikely leader because he's undersized. One, they mentioned at the beginning that he is one of the smaller rabbits that's getting the short shrift at their warren because he's not able to get as much to eat. He can't find a doe as easily because he's not as big as the other rabbits. And why is he suddenly the likely leader of this group? He sort of becomes a leader, not on purpose. He's not like trying to get them to make him the leader. He's just is the leader. And I think one of the other rabbits even calls him Hazel Ra in front of Captain Holly and Bluebell when they come back. And Holly is a little taken aback because this guy isn't what he would have thought Bigwig was the leader, because Bigwig looks like a leader. So why do you think that Hazel is so easily chosen to be the leader of this warren? If there's anything else that you guys want to talk about, please jump in the comments. I am so excited to have this discussion with everybody. It's like, I would love to hear your thoughts about anything that you want to talk about from the story. Who is your favorite character? Mine, I think I already mentioned, is Bigwig and Kihar. I love them so much. I think Bigwig is probably my favorite character overall, but I also love his relationship with Kihar. I just think it's really fascinating how they get along so well, because they're so similar. Anything else you guys want to talk about, I'd love to hear all of your thoughts, and I'm excited to have a great discussion in the comments. Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining in. If you want to be entered in the giveaway, remember you just have to comment in the video, anything at all, hopefully joining in the conversation. And I will be announcing the winner of the hardcover illustrated edition in the live show in a couple of weeks. So we'll have our discussion for parts 3 and 4 in middle of December. So that gives you guys plenty of time to catch up and finish the book. I'll be announcing it probably on my Instagram in the next couple of weeks when the date's going to be for the next discussion video, and as well as a live show. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Happy reading. Bye!